here's Brody Brazil.
As I make this video titled How to Host a Pregame Show, I need to state right from the top, I do not consider myself the definitive expert on this subject. Yes, I've done thousands of shows before baseball games and hockey games. I've watched a ton more of other people host similar shows just to see what they're doing. But no, I'm not an expert. I would say, though, I'm a connoisseur. I really like the format. I like to see how it's done well, best practices. I like to see what didn't work for myself and others similarly. So I don't know everything about this topic. I don't want to come across that way, but I've just been around it a lot. And I think over the years, inherently, I know a lot about this subject.
Quick turnaround for the A's here on a Saturday afternoon because last night they took a 3-3 game to the bottom of the ninth. They won it in walk-off fashion against the Royals. So this afternoon, it's game 3 of 4 in the series against Kansas City. Right now, Oakland sitting a season-high 11 games over 500. Out to the Coliseum in just a couple minutes, but first, welcome to Pregame Live here in our studios. Brody Brazil with Dave Stewart. None of what I'm about to say is new information. The A's have always been good at walk-offs. Last night was their 6th of this season. They lead Major League Baseball. In the Bob Melvin era, 89 total walk-offs with Bo Mel as the skipper. They, of course, lead baseball in that time span. Nothing new, Stu, but it's always amazing how they keep coming up with these type of theatrics.
So 5 things I want to point out here of how to host a pregame show. And number 1 is the obvious goals. What am I trying to accomplish? What's the producer trying to accomplish? What's the analyst trying to accomplish? What's our network trying to accomplish by putting on the best pregame show possible? And there's 3 things that stand out to me: informing, educating, and entertaining. You could do a little bit of all 3. Some shows are more of information. Some shows, because of maybe the scenario or who is with us, what expert is helping us learn things. Some shows are more about education, and some shows are more entertaining. You know, whether the team is really on a roll and you're just trying to play into the fun of that, or if something happened recently that is just worth the fun and entertaining conversation, that's the way we're going to play it. So informing, educating, and entertaining. Now, optimally, the show is not just one of those things, it's a little bit of all 3. Now, this is all entirely different from a post-game show. I want to make that clear. Setting up a game usually involves these 3 things. In a post-game situation, I don't know that you're informing as much, you're reviewing a little bit more. I'm not sure that you're educating as much, you might be explaining a little bit. And entertaining, I don't know if that's part of it. You're mostly translating because the game was supposed to entertain you, not the post-game show. Well, the post-game show should be fun. Just, you understand what I'm saying. Okay, point number 2. The pregame show is very much scripted. Now, when I say scripted, I don't mean word for word. What I want to share with you is actually kind of how I prepare for a pregame show. And that's by doing a couple different things. Number 1, I will look at the entire rundown. It's on a computer screen, top to bottom. It has a list of topics in order and how much time we're going to spend on them. And I follow this. The producer follows this. Our technical crew in the control room, they follow this. Everybody is, well, literally on the same page. So this is one view that's important for me to look at. What's in the show, in what order, and how is this thing going to flow? This is usually the first thing that I look at, that I try and get a good feel for as I prepare to do this show, and I try and see it top to bottom before I even start preparing specifics. Again, it's the bigger picture that everybody is in sync with. And then eventually you get to making some notes for each segment. Now, I say notes. The reason I do that is because there are certain ways I want to bring up specific topics. Could I do everything off the cuff? Could I kind of do it by the seat of my pants on the fly? Of course, I could. But I think what makes a better show is if you come across a little bit more polished and smooth by bringing in the specific ways that you want to bring up a topic or start a conversation, or the exact words that you might want to use to really key in a message to the viewer. So I do make notes. I want to make it very clear. I don't script word for word. In news broadcasting, they read off a teleprompter. Every word is literally on the camera, and you read off a two-way mirror. Or no, it's a one-way mirror. What is it, a two-way? You understand what I'm saying. You read off the mirror so the camera can see you and I can see the words. And I say like this: welcome to Pregame Live. I am Brody Brazil, here in our studios with Dave Stewart. But that's not it. See, I want to come across a lot more natural, so there's no reading, there's no scripting of words involved. But again, I will make these notes to try and just cycle my brain. So in the moment, here's something that looks like this. I can say, hey, the big backstory the other night was the pitching performance out of the bullpen by Jesus Luzardo. So I have that kind of written out here. You saw me not reading it, but I took a quick glance. I figured out, the direction I was going to go with these notes, and that's what helps me get through a show. Now, the pregame, again, versus the postgame, and I should make a totally separate video on postgame situations here, but the postgame is very fluid. Like a new interview might come in, or something else might change in a postgame show, but the pregame show is, when I say scripted, not a lot is going to change in our half-hour program. We know when it's going to start, we know when it's going to end, and likely there's not going to be changes. Now, it's not to say, like in hockey, for example, warm-ups just went on and so-and-so's not out there. Well, that's news to us, so we need to be part of translating that to you. Again, that's the informing part of a pregame show. Baseball, there's not a lot of changes. Sometimes a late pitching change, a scratch of a player, the lineup has changed a little bit, but for the most part, it's kind of minimal. But we do have to be flexible for changes in these shows. I say scripted, but again, we have to be paying attention to see what's developing. If there are any changes, we obviously need to react and translate that. So that was point number 2, that this is a scripted show. I do make these notes. I follow the rundown off the computer, but I am flexible to understand that it's not always going to play out how we planned it. Point number 3 is that the pregame show is generally the place for personality.
And I have to say, you're looking very sharp in that 3-piece suit.
I knew you were coming today, Brody, so I dressed for you.
I did not dress for you. Here's the irony, folks. It was hot when I left home. Those are shorts. How professional is that? I mean, I got to pull back the curtain at some point, right?
The postgame show is not necessarily the place for all that fun and games, because we're trying now to dissect a win or a loss, what it means, how it happened, what's the reaction, what's the fallout, and the bigger picture. And I'm not saying we can't have fun. We try to, but it just has to convey a little bit more of a serious tone due to the result at hand. We have new information, and it's time to really dissect and digest all of that before the personality plays in. But going back to the pregame show, this is the opportunity for personality. This is a chance to do a wacky interview with the player and get to know them better, get to know their quirks. I think that's the fun time to learn about these guys and gals before they compete. And that's kind of the special opportunities, the pregame, for me, to do a little bit more of the entertaining and educating sometimes. If you have a baseball or a hockey expert there, and we have a big demonstration area, like this is the chance for them to showcase something to us so we can all learn. And I put myself in that same category. I hang around with a lot of experts, but that certainly doesn't mean I am one at the sport. So I like learning all this stuff too. So yeah, loose. We want to be loose. We want to be personable in the pregame shows. There's no result yet. The serious stuff hasn't happened yet. At the same time, let's also understand that if this is like Game 7 of a playoff series, we're not going to be as loose as we would be in Game 42 on a Tuesday night of the baseball season. Those are going to be a little bit more free-flowing and have a little bit dialed down intensity. Okay, point number 4 of the 5 that I'm going to make here is that pregame shows are always completely reverse. What do I mean by that? Okay, even if I start a YouTube video, I generally want to put the best content at the beginning. I want to hook you from the very start, keep you watching. It's actually the complete inverse with a pregame show. We understand that not everybody might be watching the beginning of this pregame show, but a lot more people are going to be tuning in over time. And because of that, we want the most eyeballs on our best product. And so we're going to try and put our best products at the very end of the show to maximize their potential and maximize their visibility. This may not make sense to all of you, or if you're in television, you definitely get this, but it's always the goal of a pregame show to save your best stuff for last. And why also? Not just because of the amount of eyeballs, but if somebody has tuned into the pregame show, they're probably going to stay around for the game. They're probably going to watch the rest of this thing unfold. So you probably can keep them around. You don't have to keep promising and teasing them. They're going to stick around and watch the best stuff when you play it, which is hopefully later in the show than earlier. Now, that's the complete inverse, again, from a post-game show. We want our first segment to be our best segment. We want to hook you immediately. You just watch the game. Why should you watch the post-game show? We've got to come up with a good answer for you for that as soon as possible after the game.
He's become a leader here for sure.
Yeah, let's be very honest about the A's shortstop situation. They were in a very good place with Marcus Semien the last handful of years. Power hitter, leadoff guy, team leader. When he's gone, those were big cleats to fill, Stu. And so, look, it might have taken Andres a while, but we know his track record. We know his backstory, and he's been nothing short of at least very personable and a great teammate. Now he's finally starting to get some of the results on the field, too.
You know, Brody, I've been Andres. Not in the sense that I've come into an organization to take the place of a player, the stature of,
right,
you know, Marcus Semien.
Yeah.
But I've been a player that's been traded. I've been a player that's been traded twice.
All right, point number 5 of 5 here. And I kind of alluded to this earlier. I need to touch on this again because it's something I've observed in myself. It's something I've observed in other people who host pre- and post-game studio shows. It's got to be very clear that I'm not the expert here. I'm also not a journalist in this situation. I could make a separate video on that. This is not necessarily journalism doing a pre- and post-game show. There are writers, there are other people who are bona fide journalists. I'm not one. But I'm also not the expert. I'm not the athlete with decades of experience in playing or coaching. What I am trying to be is the common mind. I'm trying to think of what you're thinking of right now and ask the questions and bring up the topics that you're considering right now on your couch. I'm trying to be the common mind where I don't want to be such an expert and throw things at the viewer that are 10 feet over your head. For some people, I want to try and be the most middleman possible. The common mind. I can't really say it better than that. That's my aim in all of this. I want to ask the questions you're thinking of. I want to bring up the stuff that you want to hear about and try and keep our conversation going in those directions. I also want to be a bit relatable. You know, to be honest, I can't say I'm a journalist because I get bummed when a team goes on a 6-game losing streak that I'm covering and I grew up watching. I can't help myself. So I want to relate to the viewer in that sense. I'm also going to keep it completely professional. I can't lie about that. I'm not going to go off the deep end necessarily, but I'm here to bring the hope and I'm here to bring the worry sometimes, just like the common mind would do. So hopefully I made all that clear. Those are my 5 points on how I think you should host a pregame show. If you're watching this, are you in the television business or are you just interested to hear how to host a pregame show? Let me know in the comments section below what you think of all this. And also, don't forget to subscribe to this channel. I really appreciate that. And like this video if you actually did like it. That'll help YouTube recommend it to other people and help this channel grow.